those leaders, as I was saying in the talk, that are facing this with calmness to say, no, we're still fixed on that goal. Lots of questions, lots of uncertainties, but we've got a sense of direction. The second one that we've heard already brilliantly from Steve was about prayer. We can press into prayer. I really do think that this is one of these times where God is stripping so much away that we realize that the one thing we're left with is Him and our relationship with Him. And if you're anything like me, it's exposed a sense of, actually, I'm not sure my prayer life and my relationship with God is strong enough to really carry me and the church forward into the future. Therefore, I need to address that. And a personal testimony has been that a friend of mine in Holy Trinity and we have prayed every morning for an hour on the phone. At 5 o'clock in the morning, we've got up for the last 7 months and we've prayed for an hour for the church, for the nation, for God's kingdom. And it has been a joy. And I've never been one of those people that's ever done anything like that before. But it's been an opportunity during the change of rhythms in this time to actually say, I can prioritize prayer. So we can press into prayer. We can build community. I love this phrase from Margaret Wheatley, who says, the primary way that we prepare for the unknown is to attend to the quality of our relationships, to how well we know and trust each other. So we can prioritize those relationships, we can build community, we can think about who it is that God's calling us to build relationship with during this time. Fourthly, we can experiment and plan. Eisenhower said, in preparing for battle, I've always found plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And so thinking about what could we experiment with. The really nice thing about experiments is that they're playful. And it doesn't matter if they fail. Ideally, they're low cost, low risk things that you just try something out. And I wonder what there might be an opportunity to experiment with during this time. There's a concept called fractals, which the best illustration I've got is of a fern plant, where the pattern of the fern plant with all of its fronds is repeated at a branch level and an individual leaf level. And what this principle of fractals is saying is just try something really small, because a pattern that you learn from in a really small way can give you some insights into the bigger plant. So you could experiment in a small group of people doing something new. You could experiment in doing something online. You could experiment on new sets of relationships during this time. And they don't have to be a big thing, but they can just be trying something new. It can be playful, it can be hopeful, and it can bring something fresh during these times. And the final thing you can do is you can invest in training. Sports teams in closed season and armed forces in peacetime do two things: they rest and they train. I think we all need a rest. So in all of this, I think we really do need to look after each other and give each other permission to rest. But we can also invest in training. And online as a facility really does give us that opportunity. I invited 15 young adults and said to them, would you like to go through the book of Nehemiah and learn some leadership lessons with me during this lockdown period? And they agreed to meet with me every fortnight for 8 sessions of just investing in them, their future through God's word. And it's just been joyful. So who could you invest in during this time? Who could you give some training to? So there's 5 things that you could think about doing during this time. But I want to give opportunity for people to share what you are doing, anything that's been sparked by that, or to ask a question from what I've just said or what I said earlier. So over to you. Take some time to think through that, but when you're ready, I think we're a small enough group just to unmute yourself and begin to speak.
I can't see myself in. Oh yeah, there we are. John, thank you for that. I actually missed a couple because it was a bit slow getting me in. Could you just remind me? I've got prayer, experiment, train. What did I miss?
Build community.
Yeah.
And refresh vision.
Lovely. I'm just amazed at the way the church has geared up suddenly into online and reaching out through these electronic means, and that varies enormously, because there are some churches who were really geared up for it and doing it very well. Others had to struggle into being. And so I thought was really helpful, because I'm a small church and we were doing handheld phones, speak into it.
That's right. Yeah.
But it was actually Hannah who's helping us today from TPT, and she said it doesn't matter how small it is. When you take it together, it's all a contribution to the whole in the city. And I thought that's really encouraging, that every little bit help is a bit of body ministry going on right across the city, however small or big it is, and the variety as well. So yeah, I know so many different things are being tried from where I sit in churches together, which is encouraging.
Yeah, in our church, so I'm Tony from Hope Baptist. We have found sort of some things work online, some things don't, but we've found a couple of things that really work online. That we've run a marriage course. That I think Nikki and Stella Lee sort of, you get it all online. You just show the video and then the couples discuss stuff. And we had 24 couples attend that for 7 weeks. Because it was run in the evening, they didn't need babysitters. They haven't got organised. One has got to go out, one can stay in. It's very much that really works online.
I love that.
The marriage course, also parenting for faith as well. We're now running a parenting for faith course, similar sort of principle. Parents can both attend, their children are in bed. That these sort of things work better online actually than they do in person, because you couldn't get everyone together for 7 weeks, in person. So there's just a couple of things we've found as a church that have been helpful really in this period that may not have happened otherwise actually.
Fantastic. Yeah, really good examples. That's brilliant.
Could I ask a question, Tony?
Yeah.
So the couples and the parents who attended those 2 courses, how did you make contact with them? Did you already have contact with them before?
Well, it was advertised. Yeah, a lot of them were church families within our own church, but actually because it was online, we had people that attended that weren't even in the city. People that sort of our church was running this marriage course, but actually the way it works, you could actually run it with 100 people on it actually, because it's all about splitting out into breakout rooms and stopping the video and chatting as a couple sort of thing. So the marriage course would work really well just with somebody hosting it and showing the video and stopping at the appropriate times. It's just a topping and tailing exercise really. It's not a big labor intensive thing to run. Really works well online. So yeah, because it's like you say, Riska, because it's online, anyone can come from anywhere in the country. We run Alpha online as well actually, and we had people from Birmingham on the course, and people from outside of Plymouth, somebody from Exeter joined. So yeah, that kind of thing does open it up even further really.
Thank you.
John, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation on the fivefold. I think it was absolutely excellent and really encouraged me. And I know Ruben is on this from St. Matt's. And Ruben, I think you were preaching this Sunday morning. Was that right? May not be listening.
No, you got a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Here's my question. We're very good in the UK church in terms of our social action. The balance of the spiritual impact of the gospel to change lives. If we don't get that balance, surely we default to a gospel of we love our neighbor as ourselves, but we miss the first commandment of really being that catalyst from heaven to earth. And I think small is the new big. How do we get that balance? And my question, Ruben, I just wanted to say how much I really enjoyed your service and your presentation on Sunday, because you addressed that in terms of spiritual realities.
Do you want to share anything you shared, Ruben? Just because Chris has referenced you? No? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that with more time on the fivefold, there's the key thing for us to do is to recognise that the apostolic, the prophetic, and the evangelistic are the weak points for the church in the UK.
Yeah.
And how we adjust to including them will also involve how the pastor teachers fulfill their role as well. So this is actually a journey for all of us. It's not a prioritizing of one over the other. It's not one is right and one is wrong. But those first three are all about the spiritual realities actually transforming outside the church, not just dealing with inside the church, whereas the pastor-teacher role is primarily internally. And that's why those three roles are so key in this time when we've got such a big job to reconnect and impact our world. And so that is what we need to begin to learn to receive in leadership, and also to encourage those gifts to lead the whole church forward, because that it's going to involve the whole church beginning to learn how to grow in those areas. So my passion is to see the evangelistic really come to the fore again, and we're doing some training at the moment within Holy Trinity that is really bearing some fruit, which I'm saying later in my final session. So I love that emphasis, Chris. So thank you.
I have a question generally, and it's off the back of what Chris said. I think, was it Chris? Somebody said just now about, oh no, sorry, Tony said it, about doing stuff online. And what have people done to try and solve the problem where the people that you're trying to reach online are from really struggling families, and they won't necessarily have the means that we all have right now of accessing Zoom online meetings because they don't have the electronic gizmos or the bandwidth available in their homes? Has anybody solved that one yet?
I do know that the council put out saying anybody, please, with old smartphones or iPads, could they put them in, because they had a designated office where they would refurbish them and push them out to the families that they knew were deprived of such things. I did put it out in a Leaders Extra because I thought that's a great scheme for a city to run. And actually, how many of us that applies to, probably, where we don't have tucked away in a drawer somewhere an old piece of equipment. So I don't know if I can find it and resurrect it, but it did go out earlier this year when they were wanting to make sure children could access education.
Thank you. I didn't realise that. I've only just started getting the newsletters. So
Sarah, where do you work?
St Pancras, Pennycross.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
My general experience has been that, yeah, I think you're right, Sarah. In the more technical things like Zoom, it's much harder for those families. I think around social media, Facebook and things like that, it feels like it's more accessible for them, and so they do tend to access things through that. So if you can get it into that format, but there are sometimes some technical challenges around that. Mariska, you go next.
I was just going to say, I work with Sarah. Yes, our families, the community we work with, they do engage with Facebook and with social media, but that's not interactive. It's just us pushing stuff out. And that was my question. I think the same as Sarah is, if anyone has found any success with the sorts of inner city communities that we're working with, so face-to-face engagement is good. We've been doing hampers and we do coffee and tea at those, depending on the regulations at the time. Face-to-face is the best, but obviously in lockdown that's not possible. So if anyone has any...
I'll tell you a great story, which is of an evangelist on a really, really poor estate. He got a roulette wheel and he went online twice a week to do roulette prayers. So he would put a street against a number and a significant ministry or life or something in their community against a number, and he'd roll the roulette wheel and he'd invite people to join in and he'd pray for them, and then they'd send in their prayer requests, and they love it. And he has literally planted a church out of doing online roulette prayer in a really, really poor community using a Facebook Live watch party kind of scenario. It's just a brilliant story. And for me, it's one of those little experiment examples of, I'll try something. If it doesn't work, who cares? Nobody will watch, and then we'll try something else. But I just loved it.
We've got Gavin Calver in the room a little bit later. He's full of ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing from that.
I think we're about to get kicked out. I can't see the clock anywhere, but
yeah, 50 seconds.
Any last comments from anyone?
Just very briefly, if I may, it's Colin Trent here. We're quite a small church, and we've been able to, as I've put in the chat, to link in with St Andrew's Bookshop, just to join in with the Big Church Read. Gavin Calver through Evangelical Alliance, they're doing a monthly thing for churches so that churches can focus on the things they need to be focusing on, rather than having to run around doing all that they were doing before and suddenly having to take on board all these other additional tasks. There's such a lot of support out there. We are becoming one church. It's really, really encouraging, but we do need to reach out and see what's there as well. So yeah, that's just my 2 pence as we go back.
That's brilliant, Colin. Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.